This is Hannibal here from the Hannibal TV on YouTube, and joining me is one half of the two-man power trip of wrestling, none other than Dr. John himself, the WCW expert, the wrestling expert, as Kevin Sullivan once said. He thinks you know almost as much as Dave Meltzer. John Paz, how are you doing today, good sir?
Doing good. Thank you for having me back on. I think Kevin was just being nice, but very, very nice of
Uh,
him to say.
well, speaking of Kevin, he played a big factor in the career of the guy that we're going to be talking about tonight, who's going to be having his retirement match in about 2 weeks' time. None other than Bill Goldberg.
Gotta love it. Goldberg, Gunther, Saturday night's main event. They actually had a very good video package for it on Monday Night Raw, like an actual music video for Goldberg, and then they were highlighting the promos and kind of the whole history of the feud. So pretty good. I'm interested. I wonder where they go with it. They kind of teased that Goldberg may win the title, that he may not be retiring. It might not be his retirement match. So that was an interesting tease I wasn't quite expecting.
I would honestly like to see that, and I think I'm not the only one that would like to see that. I think WWE needs an injection right now because I just saw the SmackDown rating was down like 36% from the same week last year. So your boy John Cena isn't really given the boost that they had hoped overall.
Well, also it was on Fox last year. Now it's on cable, so it's completely different. Now only half of the audience has cable, so it's down to 50% of the audience has cable. Last year, I think it was in the 60 something
Oh
percent. So
wow.
a lot less people have the cable TV. A lot of people cutting the cord, going streaming nowadays. But I always say about Cena, it's the Cena effect. You think he's more popular than he is. You think he's a bigger draw than he is, but he's really not. If you actually really look at it, was he ever really that big? Didn't they lose millions of fans with him? I know it's kind of Vince's fault. They went PG and they wanted to go for some of those, more of those corporate sponsors. But I always call it the John Cena effect. He's popular, he's famous, but is he a draw? He's a merch seller. There's no doubt about it. Is he a draw? Does he really put butts in seats? I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Between the two, I would rather watch a Goldberg match. And I know
Oh
it's
God,
not
yeah.
Goldberg's prime anymore, but let's just say it was Goldberg's prime versus Cena's prime. No doubt Goldberg. Brendan, I agree with you. Braun Breaker, they should have brought him in as the next Goldberg babyface. He had such a buzz about him, but they had him in, and he lost to Sami Zayn early on in his run, which I don't know what the hell that did. But like Breaker, he's more legit than Gunther. I know Gunther has a great chop and stuff, but he has very skinny legs. To me, like Braun Breaker would fight you. Like Braun Breaker, I think he's a former football player. I don't think Gunther, like if it comes right down to it, is has the same mentality as Goldberg, where Breaker's more of a jock. Like if someone approached him in the bar, like he'd go at it. He's more old school, I think. I don't know. What do you think, John?
He is a legit, former football player, legit tough guy. Obviously, his dad, one of the toughest guys in the business. His uncle, one of the toughest guys in the business. I feel like Goldberg would probably want to do business with him because he was buddies with the Steiners and buddies
Yeah.
with Rick Steiner. So, feel like that could have been a good matchup. Maybe that will be the matchup. Maybe this Gunther thing we were saying retirement is just a part of an angle where he's going to be staying longer. Maybe Breaker's the guy to do it. It is interesting though. Breaker is a heel, and I can't believe he lost to Sami Zayn. I didn't like that at all. I didn't like Zayn beating Gunther either for that point. So I kind of don't know
Yeah, that
why
was
Triple
another
H.
one. I
Yeah,
forgot
I don't know
about
why
that.
Triple H loves him. That was bad.
Yeah. Yeah, because it really killed Gunther's momentum there for because he was
Yeah.
like unstoppable. It's like, what the hell? Because Sami Zayn, like where he's not anywhere near their star power right now, either one of them. And it's like, what did that do? What was the point of that other than putting a chink in their armor?
Very, very odd booking there by Triple H. I don't know. I still don't get it. And the fact that he's not winning by like fluke either is it's like, wait, what? He's actually like legitimately beating them with like his finisher. Really bad booking with Sami Zayn.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say he might be back for a run because I was just looking SummerSlam 2 nights. I mean, I don't know if they really have like two satisfactory nights worth of a card right now. Whereas if they let Goldberg win and he appeared for these next few weeks and then had another SummerSlam actual
Yeah.
retirement match, I mean that would help make one of the SummerSlam nights special because Rhodes against Cena, yeah, that's interesting. I don't think Rhodes is going to win. I think they're going to keep the title on Cena, but I don't think there's any other real marquee matches. I think they may, and you'll agree with me on this because I know you like Roman Reigns. It seems like I don't know if he's going to be able to get all the momentum he had back by SummerSlam because he was really, really, really hot and on an amazing streak when Cody Rhodes beat him, and they've just used him sparsely since then. And like they're gonna have to bring all those Roman fans back because I know a lot of them have tuned out.
It's very strange with him. I know he has like a Brock Lesnar schedule, if you will, like they cut down on his bookings. But man, it's just weird how they can kind of just like cool him off. He loses at WrestleMania, and we haven't really seen him since. It's just weird what they do with Reigns the last 2 years. I just think it was like him and Cody never had a big rematch. He never really had a big blow off match. I know he had like the solo feud, but that didn't really seem like where he was meant to be. He just felt like I don't know. He's definitely fallen off. He's still there. I think they're their biggest star. I think he's their best guy, and obviously he's the first billion-dollar champion in wrestling history, and he literally carried the company for 4 years. But when you look at it, I don't know what the heck they're doing with his booking. And if the guy's doing a Lesnar schedule, I don't you just book him better for when he is there, or do vignettes or videos at his house and have him cut promos or something. You got to use him better than what they have been. It's hardly on.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, he is the only guy really from that next generation that's in that Cena, Brock Lesnar, Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin category. I mean, Rhodes is not there yet. As far who knows if he'll get there, but I don't think Rhodes has the coolness factor of Roman Reigns that really transcends to non wrestling fans. Uh, Maybe he'll get it, but I just don't know because he's already publicly talking about, oh, I may change heel. Why would you even say that as a
Yeah, that's
babyface?
odd. Yeah. And I feel like there's no way that's going to happen. I don't think, anyway. I don't think that's going to happen or shouldn't happen.
Apparently, Roman Reigns is filming the Street Fighter movie. I think that's done filming now because they're already saying it's going to be on Tubi soon, I believe.
Really? Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know. I think he was who's he playing? Grand Akuma, I think, or forget what character they said he was playing from Street Fighter. But that's a nice role. It should be a good movie. I'm interested.
Yeah, usually if they have the poster out for the movie, that means filming is done. But really, with his schedule, they could. Well, I don't know with the insurance and stuff if they could work around a movie or not. But speaking of movies, Goldberg was in Universal Soldier too. I remember, speaking of like, I was a fan of his, and I'm not ashamed to say that. I went to see Universal Soldier 2 just to see Goldberg. He was also
Yes.
in, what was it called? The David Arquette wrestling movie doing an
Ready to
incline
rumble.
bench press. Yeah, Ready to Rumble.
Yes. I actually liked the because I liked the original Universal Soldier with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren, but I liked Universal Soldier 2, The Return, because of Goldberg, and I did see it in the movie theater because of Goldberg. I love that soundtrack too. I thought that it was a great soundtrack for that movie. Goldberg, he's been in some, I guess, with Santa Slay. He's been in some maybe some stinkers, I guess you could say, but he was in that Adam Sandler movie, the football movie. What the heck was it called? The Longest Yard, the remake of the Burt Reynolds
There
classic.
was
So
so many
he's
wrestlers
been in
in
a couple.
that. The Great Khali, Steve Austin, Kevin
Nash,
Nash.
yep.
Yeah.
Bob Sapp, yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of was Terry Crews. Terry Crews is in it too, who's almost a wrestler, kind of trained wrestler, almost made it. So
I'm
yeah,
gonna
there's been a
have to
bunch of people in
rewatch
there.
it now that you mention it.
Yeah, it's not bad actually. It's pretty good. I don't know if it's as good as the original, but it is pretty good. Goldberg, I don't know. He's been in some good stuff. He's known. He's mainstream. He's kind of crossed over, if you will, to Hollywood.
One thing I don't like is when people say he wasn't a good wrestler because there's been lots of people that have been given the push opportunity and have flopped. And he was cool. Like everyone was wearing Goldberg shirts, not as much as NWO in Austin, but
Yeah.
like no one, because in the years before that, I don't know what it was like in New Jersey, but in Canada from about 91 or so to around 90 98, pretty much, to be fair, because it was just starting to take off in 97, you'd be made fun of if you wore a wrestling shirt at school. I was in high school at this point, but when if you wore a Goldberg shirt, it's like, hey, it's Goldberg. He's killing people. Like you, people believed in him, and it wasn't like, oh, you're actually a fake wrestling fan. Like he really brought like your average person into liking wrestling.
I feel like he had the coolness factor to him, no doubt about it. There was also like that Austin fan that didn't like Goldberg, and that they thought he was, ripping him off a little bit, which he wasn't. But it was just interesting that like dynamic too, because I remember being in school, there was like an Austin fans and there was Goldberg fans, but he definitely had the coolness factor, and obviously the NWO made wrestling cool again. So everybody was kind of loving it in school at that point. They were loving either wearing NWO or then they started wearing the Austin, the Rock, the Goldberg. They started wearing all that stuff.
One thing that they're trying to put out this narrative a lot, I've heard Meltzer say it. Kevin Nash is really trying to sell it, and I love Kevin Nash, but they're like, oh, Goldberg was losing steam when they beat him. They had to beat him because he was getting stale because they were making up wins and losses, and people were not buying it. It's like, well, everyone knew he hadn't lost. That was the main thing. I don't think too many people. There was no reason to fake it. I will admit that, but I don't think that it was a case where, oh, this guy's not over anymore. Let's have Kevin Nash beat him, because that was the exact point where he stopped being popular. Yes, the crowd popped that night because they saw something, but like that was literally the beginning of the end for him for a long time until they finally did that like second run in WWE. I know I jumped around there a lot, but like, what did you think of that? Is it the case that they're trying to spin lately? Oh, people where he was losing so much steam, they had to do something.
So, a couple things there, which I find interesting. First of all, he was not losing steam. I feel like maybe because Nash was booking at that point, maybe that's the narrative he wanted to spin or what he wanted to say, so that he could eventually dethrone Goldberg and be the guy that ends the undefeated streak, and then get on a roll himself. Although Nash at that point was super hot, he was super over as well. I don't think he was as over as Goldberg, and I don't think he should have beaten him in that match. And it really, and at Starcade, just in general, I don't think that was the time for Goldberg to lose. That was definitely a bit misleading or maybe a misnomer, and I feel like that just leads the case for his narrative of why he should have been the champion or maybe why he should have went over. If Meltzer said, I'm not sure if he said about Goldberg not being as hot, but he definitely was still as hot. He definitely was still drawing well. I feel like they should have kept the title on him. Bobby Heenan has said that a million times. Sullivan even has said that to me. Should have kept the title on him. Don't know why they changed hands there. That was just foolish. And the way they did it, he didn't like it. It just one of those cases where, yes, Nash did get a huge pop, Stark idea, but I think there was a more of like a shock pop than they were so happy that Goldberg lost pop because they were both kind of getting over in the match and they were both super over. I just feel like that wasn't the right time for him to lose at all there. And he definitely lost momentum, definitely lost steam. And then WCW, look at all the momentum and steam WCW lost. That was like, the falling off point. Basically, the January 4th, 99 Raw, where everybody was watching Foley win and turned away from Nitros. 850,000 people turned away, and if that was the last time WCW ever like sniffed a lead in the Monday Night War. So having Goldberg lose, and you could say, oh, he was losing steam. The numbers kind of prove it. Everything kind of proves out that that's not actually true, and that's not the case. And the thing too with Goldberg is he was still should have been champion. He still could have been a draw as an undefeated wrestler. That was awesome. People were still into the streak. And then when it starts to get stale, then you have him job out, and then you have him lose. I just felt like it wasn't even close to that point yet, and I feel like politics got in the way, and that's really what happened because Nash took over the book at that point, and all of a sudden Goldberg loses to Nash. So and I love Nash. I think Nash is great and one of my all-time favorites, but still, definitely bad decision, bad booking decision, and not the right call.
And I remember your podcast with Kevin Sullivan about it. which is on this channel as well, where Kevin Sullivan himself says there was too much interference, all that stuff with Scott Hall, and like the whole night was just a gong show. And it, like Kevin says, it should have just been a clean victory at some point. It would have meant more than all the stuff they did. That just really made it crap if you look back
Right.
on it over time.
Right. I actually, the match itself is actually pretty good, and the crowd is pretty into it. But to me, I just felt like bad timing of it. I know Hall interferes and kind of saves, the loss a little bit for Goldberg. But Sullivan's point was that he just should have just lost straight up, and then they have the rematch, and then Goldberg beats him straight up, and you kind of make a big feud out of it. But obviously, they wanted to go a different direction, where then Goldberg had to go through all the NWO guys again. But then he never got the world title again either. So then it was just like politics just took over way, way too much. It just got way out of hand. Goldberg was still over that point. And when people, people even that cover wrestling were talking about how they were making up stuff with the streak, and his record all of a sudden would be this and that. It's such a silly thing to say, and just a silly thing to make up, because there's actual records of the matches and stuff. You could actually look it up, and it's funny. Me and Sullivan, when we did a deep dive on it, his streak and where you were talking about how many wins he had, it was only 5 matches off. And who knows if maybe those 5 matches weren't accounted for. So, and I do think they were exaggerating a little bit. But if you're exaggerating the streak by 5 matches, that's not really that much of an exaggeration, especially in wrestling. That's like nothing. So I think it's very, very silly that people were saying that about the streak. And all of a sudden he's this and all of that. Yeah, that sounds funny. That sounds good. And LOL WCW, but it's complete horseshit, and it's completely made up, and it actually doesn't actually stand up to test of time, and has no bearing on actual facts. And if they're making up, he's 150 and he's really 145 and I mean, that's not really that big of a deal. And that's how close it was when me and Sullivan were going through all the matches. It was like very, very close. Maybe 10 matches, maybe, that they made up. I mean, it wasn't like he's 90 and all of a sudden next week's 140 It actually did pretty much make sense, and especially since they were doing a bunch of house shows back then, which they no longer do. They were doing house shows. You gotta say, I mean, the streak, that was not that much of a far off of what it actually was. So those people,
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know if they're trying to be funny or if they're just bullshitters.
Yeah, I think they're making up excuses. The other thing was the internet, although people followed it, it wasn't as big as it is now. And certainly
No, not even close.
Meltzer wasn't as known as he is now. Like, you had to like subscribe to the letter. There was not as much information given on the sites from what I recall. So it's not like everyone's talking about it and interacting that much on YouTube. If there's 20,000 people in the arenas, like, how many of them are really internet fans back then?
Right. Yeah, that's true. And like they're actually, keeping updated day with the record. I highly, highly doubt it. But if you actually go back and you look in the record books, it's not the streak. It's not actually that far off. So I feel like that's a little bit blown out of proportion. And them saying that is trying to fit some sort of weird narrative.
Yeah, and I'll address this. Speaking of Sullivan, I mean, Sullivan mentioned, and Bret Hart's a worker. I mean, I don't know. Sullivan brought it up in your podcast, I believe. Didn't he get his hand up? He did get his hand up for the kick. I'm sorry, guys. Say whatever you want. He did wrestle. He actually wrestled 10 times after that in WCW. Yeah. People like to act like his whole career was over then. Well, actually, then he ended up collecting a Lloyd's of London insurance policy. Then he went back to WWE, wrestled Vince McMahon, became the U.S. champion. I don't know. I don't know if he didn't have that Lloyd's of London insurance policy, like a lot of them did, would he have still ended his career there? I really don't know. But I mean, if I was Bret and I had this policy and WCW was not using him well, I would just be like, okay, well, this was stiff. I'm just going to call in the policy. That's just a very real possibility, because I have wrestled, guys. And here's what happens in wrestling. Some people will even say it. And John knows quite a bit about the inside. When someone drop kicks you, a lot of the times they'll kick you full force in the face, and it's up to you to put your hands up, because some guys, actually more than some, a lot, can't get up high enough and in the air give an exact judgment of like, oh, I'm going to leave half an inch or what, half a millimeter, because it takes a lot to get up high enough to kick somebody 6'2" in the face. So it's like, if you have your hands up, which Brett did, and you're bumping, the key is you got to bump at the same time, and it takes the pressure away. I just don't know. He had a lot of matches before. He had 10 matches after. You're telling me a guy with the thousands of matches he had in his career, it's really that exact moment and not the buildup of concussions that maybe that just aggravated it? Because that kick to me didn't look much different than any of the other kicks he's given. And I'm sure his matches with Barbarian were just as stiff as Brett's, and the same with Haku. That's
Also,
just my thoughts.
at Starrcade '99, when Brett puts the figure four on the ring post, which he does, where he kind of goes back to the floor. Usually, the guy kind of will hold his one leg, and then Brett goes back in the figure four. You can tell when Brett goes back earlier in that match, he actually hits his back of his head on the floor, and that could have been something. And then partially blocking the kick, so it could have been accumulation in that match, because there was those two moments where it may end up as good for Brett as far as just a head injury. So there could have been it could have been a little bit of that too.
And we all know that Bret Hart was a jealous person, and he really was, and he still is to this day for some things. And I'm not saying he wasn't great. He was definitely great, but he is a worker, and he sees Goldberg, oh, this guy's hard. And Bret worked his ass off to get his push. And it's not like today where there's a million wrestlers that have been paid to train. Goldberg literally was paid to train and got this massive push. He doesn't have to wrestle that. I mean, he put 1,000,000% effort into his matches, but I could see how a guy like Bret would be like, oh, I'm coming from WWE with all this heat. I can put on these clinics, but they're pushing him. So I could see why, if you're going to have a guy that you're going to say ended your career and you don't like him, you're really going to drive it home that it's Goldberg. Because if you look at Bret's WCW run, it's actually, honestly, my most memorable moment of his WCW run was when when Goldberg went to spear him, and Bret pulls it up, and he's got this steel thing on his stomach. Yep. That was great. That was one of the best parts of his run. Yeah. But they flopped that too. Yeah. Did anything even really come of that angle? And the crowd was going nuts for that.
That was awesome. He got hurt a few times. He had a knee injury. He had a groin injury from the Malenko match. So there was a couple of bad issues in WWE. The booking was awful. Hogan definitely had something to do with like where he was placed on the card. I have a feeling, because I don't know, just the booking of Brett WWE is still mind-boggling to this day. You're paying him so much money and they booked him like crap. I just think with Brett, he's just overly honest. If he thinks the guy stinks, he's not going to tell you the guy doesn't stink. If he thinks the guy stiffed him, he's not going to tell you the guy didn't stiff him. He's just so honest. And it's funny, people say he's bitter. I just think he's just overly honest. Like, they asked him what he thought about Triple H, and he said he thought Triple H was a 4 out of 10 in the ring. And they asked him again, and he goes, I told you, I thought he's a 4 out of 10. Like, he's just like brutally honest. I don't think he can kind of turn that on and off. That's just the way he is. I love it, though. I love the honesty. I guess, not a Goldberg fan at all.
Yeah, and I will agree with him that Triple H is overrated, but he's a 10 out of 10 politician for 100% for sure.
Yeah, maybe one of the best. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you that Brett is definitely honest, and he doesn't have to hide his feelings at this point. But let's take a look at this screenshot here as far as this kick goes. I mean, he knew the kick was coming, and let's take a look there. His hand is clearly up for it. So I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't say it's all behind Goldberg, because if someone tells me that they're kicking me in the face and I don't protect myself from it, I would put some of the blame on myself, but whatever. Someone actually liked his WCW run here for Brett. Someone
Nope.
says that was the
Nope.
first Goldberg pin. It was awesome. Not sure which pin he's referring to. But what did you what at what point, John, did you start to become a fan of Goldberg or notice, oh, wait a minute, it looks like they're pushing this guy to the moon? Did you know right away or did
So
it take you?
literally that September '97 when he's fighting Hugh Morris, I was like, wow, okay, this guy, you know what I mean? When you're fighting like a job guy, you can kind of tell, like, okay, this guy is definitely doesn't look like the other wrestler. Even like let's say Hugh Morris versus Joey Maggs, and you're like, okay, Joey Maggs is going to get destroyed here. It doesn't look like Hugh Morris. He doesn't look like these big freshman wrestlers. Goldberg looked like this badass, tough dude. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? This guy's got to be somebody. I don't know if he's an ex-football player or ex-something, some sort of ex-athlete, but this guy looks like, and then all of a sudden he pulls off these awesome moves in that match. And obviously, built him up. Hugh Morris is making him look good too, but he just looked great in that match, albeit short and sweet. And, kicks out of No Laughing Matter, which no one really did at that point. So you kind of just got the feeling. But I liked him right off the bat just because of his look. I thought he looked cool. It's like, man, this guy's like, he's got something. He's got something about him. He's got some sort of charisma. So I kind of liked him right off the bat. But it's funny, when he started getting the push and he beat Hogan that early on, that's when I kind of like turned on him a bit, because I'm a Hogan guy and I'm an NWO guy. I'm like, well, he beat Hall and Hogan in the same night. Holy crap. But rewinding back, the first time I saw him, I was like, okay, this guy is cool. I want to see more of this guy, something special. Not that I was a fan of him right away, but he caught my eye, he caught my attention. Like, okay, this guy is charisma. This guy is something. This guy is an awesome look. I want to see more of this guy. Goldberg came off as like a legit badass.
And the one thing I notice when I watch his early matches, and I've gone back and watched like a bunch of this, again, I'll rather watch that than today's wrestling for some reason. That's the weird thing. I'd rather rewatch the streak matches than see CM Punk give John Cena a lesson in punkonomics. But
The thing with Goldberg though too is the streak, not only the streak itself, but the matches are awesome, and people kind of will say, oh, they're short, blah blah. Listen to the crowd. That's the most
yeah,
important thing. Listen to the crowd. Listen to the reaction. He was getting the biggest pop of the night, and they were going nuts. And I love those WCW Southern
yeah.
crowds because they were awesome. But like they just were like on their feet. They were going nuts. Bobby Heenan sold it like $1 million. It was awesome. And him just going through the guys, especially the feud with the Flock when he went through them all, the crowd was going nuts. And then Raven with the stop sign, and then he no-sells the stop sign. Really, really good. And how could you say they're bad matches when they're kind of short and sweet and the crowd is loving them? So, that maybe fundamentally or maybe technically sound, who cares? It's wrestling. The Ultimate Warrior wasn't that good and he was over. So, and Goldberg's better than Warrior as far as a worker to me. So, I don't know. To me, I don't know. People over exaggerate it quite a bit.
And the thing I noticed when I went back and watched those is you can tell it's not like today where a match is planned step by step. I know they have the basics, but you can see it's like gritty, and he's basically like it's very raw. That's what I
Yeah.
like about it. It doesn't look like, oh, here's a guy, he's doing step 1, step 2, step 3. You can see little mistakes there, and then they kind of fumble, and then it goes into something else.
Yep.
So it's just, I think that level of like believability isn't there as much these days, sadly. And where you mentioned the crowd was like cooler back then for some reason. It was like there's more girls in the crowd. There's like groups of college guys. And I'm not saying getting drunk is necessarily cool, but there's a bunch of like, you can see wasted, like college guys just having a blast,
Having fun.
and as you mentioned, just so loud. And now it's like your 45-year-old overweight wrestling fans in the crowd with their belts and singing away at songs and stuff. I don't know. It was a magical time back then, and it could happen again if a new wrestler comes along and gets over to that point. But I mean, I don't know, because Roman Reigns has been the last one, and I don't see anyone really coming up transcending the business really. as the next Roman Reigns. Maybe Braun Breaker could get it eventually, but he's definitely not there yet. And I don't. You got to kind of like, I don't know, have that real personality like a Piper who was on the road for a long time, or the Flair. Like they developed their wacky personality when they were on the road with
Yeah,
all these wrestlers. And it's like there's no house shows anymore. I don't know if they're developing as much and having that road experience, and the road makes you kind of a wild and crazy, abnormal personality because now you can pretty much live a regular life. You're only wrestling like once a week in a lot of cases, and you're not even necessarily having a match. So
yeah,
you don't. In the old days, it was like Terry Funk said it. Some of these guys could have only been wrestlers because they were just too wacky. And even Lanny said it, Lanny Poffo, that the road, if you're already crazy, the road will make you more crazy, and if you're not crazy, the road is kind of going to bring it out of you. There's very few
yeah.
people that didn't go a bit wacky on the road. You could say maybe Bob Backlund and Bruno Sammartino, but even Bob had an edge to him.
Oh yeah, for sure. Oh my God, yes. But going back to Goldberg and kind of him becoming who he was and kind of going through the streak. When you actually watch some of those matches, and somebody recently put on a compilation of just random Goldberg moves that he was just kind of trying out because he's green as hell. I mean, he had some power plant training, he had some training with DDP, and obviously Buddy Lee Parker, the Sarge down there. But it was one of the things where he was kind of experimenting in some of the matches. So the roll the dice, which is an innovative move that eventually Reno did, and it's kind of what Cody Rhodes does now with the Crossroads, but reversed. So he used to do the roll dice and then spin you the other way, and which was really kind of cool. And he would do like leg submissions. You could tell he was an MMA fan, so he was trying stuff out. He must have trained a little bit in MMA as well. He was trying out a lot of cool moves, and some of them like worked out, some of them didn't. So he just kind of skipped it. But it was kind of cool just to see, and the crowd reacted to pretty much everything he did because he was so over, so charismatic that it didn't even matter if it was like a flub or a screw up, and it almost looked like it was like a real fight. So they just kind of bought into it and went into it. So it was a cool time, and I don't know, I was a Goldberg fan. I liked it, and I liked most of his matches. The only real, like, if you look at it, the only real stinker of a match was the Regal match. And it's funny, we found out all these years later, and even Sullivan didn't really want to talk about it as much. He was just saying it wasn't as bad a match as everyone says it was. But Arn Anderson was the guy that was the agent of the match, and he told Regal, let's try to have a little bit more 50-50 match. Let's give him a little bit more seasoning, give him a little bit more experience. Let's see how he does doing that. But that's not really the Goldberg match, and that's not really the Goldberg style, and that's not really what they were going for. No, Arn's the agent in here. But if you're Regal and you're going through this match, does it really need to be 50-50? I mean, it's Goldberg here. Just get in there and kind of get squashed. And yeah, you could do whatever you want. I just feel like Regal, and I know he's kind of debunked it and kind of said something differently. I feel like he totally went into business for himself in that match. Just kind
He
of,
did.
there's no there's no doubt about it. And I don't care if
Goldberg hates him
Sullivan,
over it still, by the way.
yeah, but I don't care if Sullivan said so. I know it wasn't as bad as people would say when you
Yeah.
kind of rewatch, but I don't care. Sullivan said it, or Anderson said it, whoever. Regal, you got to know better. That's 100% on Regal. Come on, man. Goldberg's getting this monster push, and you're trying to get over. Because obviously you've been in some trouble at that point too, if you know what I mean. Extracurricular
He was a
stuff.
drug addict and alcoholic, but
Yeah,
he's because of his friendship with Triple H, because he started in WCW with Triple H. He's got a million second chances. But the one thing I will say, when I started wrestling in Stampede, it was a territory where the older guys would rough you up because they'd been roughed up by the previous
yes,
generation.
yep,
And I didn't, when you're starting wrestling, and keep in mind, I come from amateur wrestling, which is very rough. I did not even realize that that really wasn't how wrestling was. And and I know what Goldberg is saying for everyone that, like, the anti-Goldberg people like to be like, oh, Regal kicked his ass, blah, 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 blah. He did not kick his ass. Goldberg did not realize Regal was even doing anything abnormal because he was just following the
the heel.
veteran. He only
Yeah,
realized later when people are getting in his ear saying, "Hey, this guy sabotaged you," Then he
Yep.
started developing the hatred. Because honestly, the little kick in the face, I mean, lifters, that's not a punch. If Regal had punched him in the face, Goldberg would have fucking killed him. That's just the
Right.
fact.
But
I
the
mean,
whole
Regal
thing is
might be a
though,
grappler, but
yeah,
Goldberg is tough.
Regal's tough, no doubt, as a grappler, no doubt. But if you're in that point, you are the veteran. He is green, but he's getting a huge push because he's the most over guy in the company. You don't do that bullshit. You know better. Stop it with the nonsense. You're totally full of shit. 100% full of shit. You were trying to get over. You were trying to be cute. You were trying to kind of diminish him a little bit. You're trying to kind of make him look bad, which is so stupid. If you're a Bischoff, whoever at that point, I know maybe you give Orton like a slap on the wrist, but you fire Regal right on the spot. I mean, come on, man. And you could say, oh, it wasn't that bad, and blah blah blah. Dude, you knew exactly what you're doing, and this ain't 1991 catch wrestling in Europe where you can kind of stiff green guy. This is doing the Monday Night Wars where you have a guy that's being elevated to the next level of like Stone Cold Steve Austin stardom, and he's getting the push of a lifetime. You don't pull that bullshit. That was. I know it's only a 5-minute match, but that was ridiculous.
It's bad for the whole company because it's like I know it was Turner and everything, but like this guy was the golden goose. And it's
Yeah,
like you want to try and make a name for yourself by
and he
like
killed
taking a
Perry. And he killed Perry Saturn, who was great and kind of getting a push. And he killed Conan. Remember his 100th win? And like, okay, killing these guys that are pretty over, especially Conan, huge over. And Goldberg kills him. He's beaten, every guy that he's coming up against. I mean, Reese is a 7-foot guy. He's running through Reese. And all of a sudden, Regal, who hasn't really been getting pushed in a while, is all of a sudden getting in some offense and getting
and
in
he
these
looked like
moves.
crap then too, by the way.
Well,
He
yeah, he was out
was
of shape. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So he knew what he was doing. Just a huge misstep. Dumb, 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 dumb. Come on.
And one thing I'll say, like people can call Triple H a genius booker all he wants. That feud is over. If they wanted to have a match that literally everybody would want to see, it would be Goldberg and Regal. I don't think there's anyone else Goldberg could wrestle that people would want to see, and he's under contract. I mean, I would have at least put it on a Raw or something, and maybe they will. But it's like, why not do that? There's people are still talking about it. What was it, 30 years ago now? It's like
Almost
Pewter and
27.
Angle.
Yeah.
They never had that either. It's like sometimes you gotta actually take the match that people have some belief in that's real, make it happen.
I want to see, obviously Goldberg Gunther it's fine. Like we were talking about Goldberg Breaker, but I'd like to see on the WCW Vault, which is a great YouTube channel that they have. I'd like them to put the streak together all the way through. And I'd like to watch all the Goldberg matches all the way through in order. I think that would be pretty cool. Just a little memo to the WCW Vault there on YouTube. I think that would be awesome because I know they are taking requests. So that would be a nice little request for them to do that.
Yeah, definitely that because there is versions of that, but it's not the best quality. The other thing we should bring up is when he went to WWE. I heard Meltzer talking about it. I wasn't really watching WWE that closely at this time, but apparently Triple H arranged a house show tour where he was having like 15-minute matches with Goldberg and winning. So it's like you bring in this guy that people only want to see have short matches and win. And like the very first major house show tour he does, it's these long matches where Triple H
It
goes
kind of just
over.
Triple H is kind of, I don't know. He was always the B plus player, if you will, and I think that's well documented by many different pundits of wrestling. But with him, one of those things where maybe he wasn't as good as people thought he was. First of all, why would you want to have that long of a match with Goldberg? Who put the stamp on it that actually should happen because that's so stupid. But even his matches with Steiner was injured and had a really bad foot, and you want to have a 25-minute match with him, like, and on top of that, and you can't even carry him while he's injured when other guys have. It's just really really bad, and it's funny because like okay, Steiner wrestled Samoa Joe after that. Joe was able to carry him to a couple great matches. So just kind of shows you Triple H perhaps a bit overrated in the ring. Couldn't carry Goldberg, couldn't carry Steiner. And if the guys are injured, he kind of could only work with a guy if the guy was good. And I always felt like that was something that was totally overblown. Like, oh, Triple H is such a great worker. Not really.
And then, of course, Goldberg versus Austin never happened. They
Yeah,
really
huge
blew it. It was
mistake.
that WCW
Yeah,
animosity, the first run, that they just completely wasted Goldberg.
terrible. And then Lesnar, that match could have been legendary, could have been great. WrestleMania 20. And really, the whole thing was they were both leaving, and everybody knew they were leaving, so everyone shit on it. And Austin's the referee, so the only way to make him go home happy, Goldberg gets to win, and Austin stunners him afterwards, which leads to nothing. And then obviously Goldberg leaves, and Lesnar leaves for several years after that. So, yeah, that was not good. Did not like the WWE run, and you would think Vince, oh, he's such a great booker. Nope, he used the WCW thing against him. He definitely held that against any WCW guy that came in. The WWF was going to win and make them look bad at all costs. Look at Triple H versus Sting at WrestleMania 31. All those years later, they still had to do WWF was better than WCW. Huge, huge missteps all along the way there. Pretty crazy, though. Rock loses to Goldberg in Goldberg's debut. So look at The Rock. He's willing to put guys over and do it, in a convincing fashion. I like the Jericho match, too. Remember, Goldberg had a great match with Jericho at the Bad Blood '03 pay-per-view. And that was kind of building up. But then he loses at SummerSlam after kicking everyone's ass and destroying everybody in Elimination Chamber. Triple H hits him with the sledgehammer and beats him. Triple H couldn't even move at that point. He had torn his groin. At that point, if you're that badly injured, and I know they fought at the Unforgiven pay-per-view the month after, and Goldberg won in a kind of a stinker of a match, and then Triple H and him had a pretty decent match at Survivor Series a few months after that. That's SummerSlam. What a huge misstep. That's when you give Goldberg the title, and he should have squashed Triple H. Triple H could barely even move, couldn't even wrestle, shouldn't even been in the match. I don't even know how he was cleared. He had a groin pull so bad, and you could tell the way he was moving, just terrible booking back then in WWE with Goldberg. And you even remember they put a wig on his head. Remember with Goldust at one point, they put the wig on his head, trying to give him personality, which was so corny. So,
That
yeah,
was horrible. That
horrible.
was around that, like, I was barely following it then, but I remember seeing that and I was just like, what the I saw it when I was bouncing, actually. I remember that, and I was just like, what the hell's going on here?
So bad. They really, really. And it's funny, like everyone, oh, WCW wasn't as good as WWF. You're talking about some booking of some guys, like the Giant in WCW was booked way better than Big Show was ever booked in WWF. And obviously there was politics and a lot of bias involved there. But look
The
at Goldberg.
Giant, 100%, I will agree with you. I've never liked anything he's done since WCW, to be perfectly honest.
And Goldberg too. Look, I mean, obviously, he's like, oh, we couldn't duplicate the streak, and we had to give him personality, had to do this. No, there's a certain way, and obviously, he proved it time and time again. Is why you're still booking him in 2025. There's a certain formula to Goldberg. There's a certain, obviously, aura, charisma, charm, whatever you want to say, but it's short and sweet. Nobody wants to see Mike Tyson have a 12-round boring fight. You know what I mean? We want to see him knock guys out, and obviously that's who Goldberg was kind of emulating. He was literally built off of Tyson. That was his gimmick was Mike Tyson. So that's what people want to see, and that's what that's what it should have been. At WWF, no idea. WCW smartly did it. Correct.
People don't
right
like
way.
Seeing Tyson lose either, to be honest with you.
Nope. Totally kills the allure, kills everything. I mean, look after the Buster Douglas, and obviously the rape charge and everything else kind of, hurt him for a bit, but, it's Mike Tyson. He's still going to draw, but nobody wanted to see Buster Douglas beat him. A lot of people, nobody really wanted to see Holyfield beat him either, or Lennox Lewis. So, I mean, they want to see Tyson knock guys out.
By the way, Buster Douglas is just a weird guy. I've had some communication with him. Very flaky guy.
Hey, he did once knock out Macho Man Randy Savage on Saturday night's main event. So you got to give him Buster Douglas.
There's a last minute change nobody liked either.
Yes. That's funny, too, if you think about it. If you had Mike Tyson, who was supposed to be as the guest referee, but of course he lost, so they had to go with Buster Douglas, with Hogan and Macho Man Saturday night's main event, which was a huge rematch, would that have changed the complexion of wanting to book Tyson at WrestleMania 14 all those years later? About 8 years later, would Tyson still have been the referee for WrestleMania 14? Just throw that out there. Who knows?
I was just going to bring this up because Vince Russo has confirmed that he actually wanted Warrior against Goldberg.
Yep.
Meltzer was so critical about this. Oh, nobody wants to see that. blah blah blah. And I agree with Dave on some things, I don't on others. This, I mean, whether it would have been good or not, I think everyone would have wanted to see this match. That was either a Goldberg or Warrior fan, which there was a hell of a lot of them.
And even the people that think the match is going to stink, they're like, "Oh, I got to see Goldberg Warrior. I want to see, how the hell they're going to, structure this match, how they're going to wrestle. They're just going to stiff the hell out of each other the whole time. Meat versus meat, if you will, as the fans love to chant nowadays when two big guys are kind of just killing each other and slugging it out in there. So, I feel like that's a huge dream match. It would have been awesome, and I know Russo has obviously confirmed it and confirmed it with me as well that he was trying to kind of make that possible, was thinking about it, and would have wanted to do it, and that was definitely something. First of all, if you're WCW and you have these dream matches and these guys that are just huge names and awesome guys, even if they're from different eras, that's just something. I mean, that's just easy money. I mean, just easy booking. And Sullivan would always say, Bretta, that would look good on the poster, Bretta. And that would have looked awesome on the poster. Imagine it, Goldberg, Warrior, dream match. Would have been
Yeah.
awesome. I would have loved it. It probably wouldn't have been that good of a match, but I would have loved it.
They really should have done more with Warrior. They could have controlled him better. I mean, you didn't have to give him those long promos. I mean, I don't know if that was in his contract, but I'm sure they could have come up with negotiations to have him just do dream matches like that. And
Yeah,
he did boost ratings hugely when he came back. I know a lot of people don't want to remember it that way, but that, I think that long promo segment he did was like one of the record ratings at the time, wasn't it?
huge. He always was above in ratings, which is why Vince ended up liking him because he meant business, pal. He was all about business. And I always find it funny, like when some guys are draws, especially TV draws or ratings draws, it's funny. Like, they just don't sometimes won't get the credit. Goldberg's one of those guys, and I don't know what it is, jealousy, them just having their certain narrative that they put out there, but always a draw, especially TV ratings. And that's why WWF kept bringing it back and back and back. And obviously, Saudi wanted him a bunch because he did well for them, and obviously meant big business. He's a huge name, and he's a huge draw. So, 100% for sure, that would have been great.
It's interesting because people give guys like Goldberg and Warrior heat for wanting their own dressing room back then. Now, like, even Gunther has his own bus and dressing room. It's like you
Yep.
can't compare Gunther, even a needle in the haystack, to the popularity of either of those guys, but nobody gives them hell. But oh, Goldberg wanted his own dressing room. Well, he was a massive star.
And all those guys had their own dressing room at that point too. So there was, if you hear the story, like Piper had his own, Hogan had his own, Savage had his own. Most of the guys had their own locker room back then. So yeah, like no issue or problem with that either. That's another like weird narrative.
Were you there when Goldberg faced Lesnar at WrestleMania 20? I think it was.
No, I did not go to that show. Watched it at a friend's house. But I know that crowd was also.
Really?
I wanted to go. The tickets were too expensive at that point. I couldn't afford it. Believe it or
Wow.
not.
Were you surprised the finish they had there?
A little surprised. That was, I don't know. You kind of didn't know what direction they were going to go with, but you knew both Goldberg and Lesnar leaving. So I actually wasn't sure. I didn't expect Goldberg to win, but kind of a cool, send off there with the Austin stuff at the end, obviously, because they were both leaving and they wanted some sort of, happy goodbye. But that was very strange. Obviously, Goldberg at that point hated WWE, hated it the way he was booked there. Didn't just didn't go well that time around.
Yeah. Imagine how like you think about how packed that WrestleMania was, and now I know why they split it into 2 days, but it's just like it just waters it down so much than having one night, the best of the best, all the top stars on one card. I think it will go back one day probably when when popularity starts to diminish. But
Yep.
it's just thinking back, WrestleMania just seemed so much special back then.
It'll definitely go back eventually, but right now when they're making all this money and they just broke a record in Vegas, which is why they're going back to Vegas again, and Vegas gave them more money, so they're definitely going to break a record again. It's just one of those things. I don't like you just got to just go with the money, but it'll definitely go back one day. I can't see this lasting, forever. That is true though. The Goldberg Lesnar rematch, the Survivor Series 2017, that was awesome. His return before that, I mean, like it basically to TV is awesome. Got a hero's welcome, got huge ratings, everything pumped up, and people forget this, which is so crazy because for some reason people online love Kevin Owens. He was such a like a bad draw as champion. They kind of threw that together because of what was going on at that point and injuries and other things. They've almost like just threw the title on him. He was such a bad draw. Goldberg had to return. Goldberg would have never returned if they were actually drawing with Owens as champion. So people forget that, and I don't know why. I guess he's like beloved online. Honestly have no clue why. And I know he just had an
Great
interview
politician.
he is a good politician. There's no doubt about it. But he had an interview with Cody Rhodes, and people are picking up like stupid things that he said. And he made a comment about Ryback, and all these things are picking it up. I'm like, this guy, he's not really that interesting. He's not really that good. He's like another B+ player. He's a solid wrestler, solid hand, but he wasn't drawing as champion. That's people forget. Like that's why they brought Goldberg back. They needed something. They needed an infusion of something. And literally, Heyman was the one. He was friendly with Goldberg, and he was the one really pushing for it. And Lesnar was like, "Hey, I need somebody to work with. I need
Both
money.
Goldberg and Lesnar didn't want to give Owens fair matches either, if you remember that. They both insisted,
Yes.
hey, I'm not selling for this guy.
Yes, when they did have a match in that period of time, I think it was a minute or 30 seconds. It was a squash. Lesnar just destroyed him. So he just didn't want to work with him. He didn't think that he was like worth his time, kind of at that point. And you could take politics for sure, but Owens was just not the guy. So they literally had to bring Goldberg, and Heyman kind of requested they had to bring Goldberg out of retirement because Owens was such a horrible draw as champion, and obviously just wasn't cutting it. Which is so funny that Vince told Owens supposedly and Jericho, "Yeah, you guys are going to main event WrestleMania this year for the title," and they ended up being like the second match or something. And they ended up getting the title off Owens when Goldberg squashes him or whatever. Just so funny. It's like Vince is definitely working those guys. He literally, and if you're smart, which Jericho is, and Owens should be to the business, you're not main eventing WrestleMania because they literally brought in a guy that was a draw to replace you because you weren't drawing. So I don't care how good you thought the storyline was, how good it was going. You were never going to get that spot when that guy is a better draw with you. Proved that he was a better draw with you when they brought him in. It's silly.
My problem with Owens is they give him the fight Owens fight gimmick. He backed down to Jeremy Prophet in a backstage thing in Quebec when he had been bad mouthing him. He's not a real fighter. And he backed down to CM Punk in Ring of Honor. I don't know if you ever heard that story.
Yes. Yep.
But he's not a real fighter. How is his gimmick a fighter? He's not. He's never been in a real fight. And he has no fighting background whatsoever.
No, he's just a brawler. That's all. He's like it's a pretty good brawler, and he's had some good matches. There's no doubt about it. I don't know, some of the matches a little bit maybe wrong on the star rating list, a little overrated, and not actually correct, but that's fine. That's one man's opinion, or a bunch of people's opinion of those matches. I just think that not as good as people say. B+ player for sure.
One of his best friends works for Dave, Pat LaPrat or whatever. They're all buddy. They're all buddies. But let's not. We're almost out of time here. One thing I think that AEW messed up on, and it would have been very, very smart, is to give him an AEW streak and like give him money. He couldn't refuse to end there because I think he would have done it. He may not have liked it as much as WWE, but they could have like given him a fresh streak and really done it properly. But that's another big Tony Khan mistake.
I don't know if those fans, though, like AEW fan base is a little bit different. I don't know if they would have took to the Goldberg streak, but they took to Sting so well. So I don't know. Maybe they would have. Maybe they would have liked it. I would have liked it. But I think Khan was offering him money, but I don't think Goldberg was physically maybe able at that point, or maybe he didn't want to do it at that point. I don't know what the issue was, but I know Khan was trying to get Goldberg because he was a Goldberg fan back in the day. So he tried. It just was unsuccessful. Maybe it didn't offer him what he wanted, or maybe he was just thinking he just wanted to be a WWE and didn't want to go there. But I know with I actually like real Goldberg. Interesting. It's all right. It's all right. When you look at it though, I don't know if maybe it's more of a Goldberg than Khan. I wouldn't blame Khan for that. But if you were Goldberg, though, if you looked at the way Sting was booked from Khan, like I would kind of wanted to go to AEW because, like, wow, this guy takes care of the legends. Like this guy does. Sting was undefeated. They treated him like a god, like he should have been. WWE totally disrespected him and didn't treat him right. If I was Goldberg, I would have been like, hey, man, maybe AEW would have been the way to go.
I know he later said the product was too cheesy for him or something, and he
Oh
mentioned
yeah,
the guy
yeah, he
with the
didn't.
pizza wrestling with
Yeah,
the pizza flip. But I think if it could, there could have been something negotiated, make him an offer he can't refuse.
no,
But
he didn't
whatever.
like Orange Cassidy and a couple of the guys. He wasn't too fond of, but obviously he wouldn't have interacted with them. I mean, they would have put him with somebody else, but I guess he thought it was a little too cheesy or whatever. But
Do
I don't know.
you
I think Tom would have
remember
handled it
that
well.
that Rick Bass? I don't even know if this is legitimate or not because I asked Rick about this and he said the money guy fell through. But this was actually reported like in the summer of 2023 that Rick Bassman of all people, who we know very well, was
Yeah.
going to promote Goldberg's retirement match in Israel, which was
Yes.
just so random.
Yeah.
And of
Yeah.
course, it never happened, but it was just so weird to hear that.
Yeah, no, that was legit. I actually talked to Rick about that. I don't know if we're supposed to put this out there, but that was big. Sting was going to be brought over there too. They had Rob Van Dam, a bunch of guys, but obviously Hamas and those hooligans kind of ruined that. But yeah, that was legit. And then without Goldberg, they were going to go over there and really just which kind of sucked because that was the whole thing was Goldberg and his tour, and that was going to kind of be the retirement match, and Rick was kind of going to be on the forefront of putting that together with I think Ali Farhad, a bunch of other guys, the guy from Qatar, and a bunch of the other guys. They were like in cahoots to
Oh,
put that
really?
together.
The Ali Farhat from Calgary, of all people?
Supposedly he was involved in that too,
Wow. I didn't
but
even know they knew each other. That's so weird.
Rob Van Dam was going to be on it, but then Goldberg was off of it, and then they were going to do with RVD, John Morrison, like a bunch of guys. I think maybe even I don't know if Ryback was teased or maybe they were going to talk to Ryback, but yeah, that was going to happen with Goldberg, and it just got blown to hell all the politics and all the other stuff, the war and stuff that was going on over there, and obviously it's not happening now because Goldberg's
No.
under WWE contract.
Do you think that they should have done this more? Maybe he wants too much money, but I do think they should have done a Goldberg in more of the major cities. And I think, honestly, they could have easily sold out the Georgia Dome to have his final match there. But you should have done a Madison Square Garden, LA, Toronto. Like there's some, although they hated him in Toronto, so maybe not Toronto, but maybe just to get that reaction one last time, just to say, hey, we got it. But just, and they could have just been real quick squash matches. We don't want more. Like, for instance, Cross was chirping him, like, why not? Like, they just jobs Cross to Zayn. I would have rather seen Goldberg destroy him in Saudi, and I'm sure the Saudi people would have paid for it. But it's strange that they didn't want to like make a little bit more use of the retirement.
That's why I think maybe that this isn't a retirement match. That maybe this is a retirement run. Maybe he's got some more matches left in him. I would think Saudi, whenever they're back there, I forget when they're going back. I would think that would be on his radar and their radar because I know they love him over there. Oddly enough, so
Yeah, that famous
that's got to
match
be on the
against
radar.
the Undertaker was there, right? Where they were both.
Yes, yes, way too
Tell
long.
us about that for people that forget about it, because I only saw the highlights, but
So
Undertaker and Goldberg had both concussions or something out of it.
yeah, so Goldberg, Undertaker, if you actually look at it, and you could say I'm making an excuse for these guys, they're in their 50s. It's 100 degrees, and it wasn't a typical Goldberg match. I know it only went 8 minutes versus like 3 minutes. Oh, wow, they could have still been able to do it. Goldberg got knocked out, concussed during the match. Undertaker doesn't realize that he's concussed, and he probably should have. And I know he's in an interview, he said this. I think it was actually on his podcast. He's mentioned this, that he should have known better. He should have like looked at Goldberg's eyes and know that he was out of it. Goldberg went for a spear early on and kind of headbutted the turnbuckle, if you will, and the ring post, and he got concussed. He was kind of out of it. He then later on the match, they're exhausted. You could tell they're both just not used to it, and it is way too damn hot out there. I was reading it was over 100. he gets him up for the jackhammer, and he almost breaks Undertaker's neck. He kind of like barely gets him up, and then drops him, and he almost drops him directly on his head, directly on his neck. So yeah, literally almost kills Taker there with that one. But he's concussed, exhausted, old. Not not set of mind. So yeah, the match should have been way shorter. They should have been smarter with it. It wasn't a typical Goldberg match. I know it was like Undertaker Goldberg, such a legendary match and such a huge dream match. It was great, but it should have been shorter and it should have been sweeter. It just went too long, and Goldberg's hurt, and then while he's hurt and concussed, and it's going on too long, and he's exhausted, then he almost killed Undertaker. It's just not good by either guy.
I love this comment by the Ragu Overlord. In AEW, it would have been, how long can we keep him home at full pay and not use him?
They love doing that. Look at Keith Lee right now. Where the hell's he been? He's been getting paid.
Yeah, he's been paid. I heard Meltzer say like he's been fine all of 2025. His surgery was in like early 2024, so it's been like at least a year and a half.
Yep.
All they can figure, and Russo said this too, it's like maybe they just don't want to release him, but don't really have anything. But so he's just sitting. But here's the thing that I don't get. They have so many people that no one has a clue who they are, that more people know about Keith Lee than these guys that I don't know their names, for instance.
Yeah.
Why not use Keith Lee to put them over? And this is not a knock at Keith Lee. It's like, you're paying this guy. He was on WWE. If you're flipping channels or whatever, oh, I remember this guy. Let's watch. Oh, this guy just beat him. Jack Perry's at home. He had so much buzz after the CM Punk thing.
Yeah.
Then they friggin' punish him. And then they bring him back, use him a little bit. Then he's disappeared again. What the hell?
It is strange. Remember they did it with Pentagon and Phoenix too. I don't know why they just sit the guy, they bench him. I don't get it. I don't know.
And then Pentagon makes a massive impact because everybody misses him. And even Malachi Black, he only did 2 jobs in AEW, and I think they were both to Cody Rhodes of all people. And it's like, whoa, he's leaving. Let's sit him out. So he comes in there fresh, and now he's apparently WWE is going to give him a big push, I hear.
Yeah, he just beat up R-Truth. Yeah, he just beat up R-Truth last week. Yeah.
That's crazy. Well, do we touch on the Goldberg heel turn before we go? What did you think of the Goldberg heel turn in WCW?
I just talked to Russo about it. Didn't like it then, don't like it now. It was a mistake. Wasn't called for. He literally had just come back off injury. The fans were so hyped to see him that they were so into him that even all he was doing this heel stuff, and they were trying. The right Russo and the righties, they're trying to turn him heel. They're trying to do healer stuff. It's just nobody was buying it. Nobody wanted to see him as a heel. He had just returned off of injury. Everybody wanted to see the Goldberg ass kicker, huge pop, spear, jackhammer, and it's just huge mistake. I didn't like it at all.
That was one of the things that made me start hating WCW, and I always liked WCW, but it's like, why are you doing this? Nobody wants to see that. And then the horrible thing where he's punched. Here's how tough this guy is. For anyone saying Rio would have just mopped the floor with him. He's literally punching holes in the window and is slicing his arm open, and he continues to do it a couple times. It's like, that made... I remember that, just the blood just pouring out of his hand because this multi-million-dollar company wouldn't pay for fake windows for one of their biggest stars to punch.
Well, he had the pipe, which was kind of hidden in his thing. He got so mad, the pipe actually ends up falling out. He was so mad it's got hole. He's like, screw it, I'll do it anyway. And he punched a hole through the window, and obviously was out for months with a huge gash in his arms and it bleeding like freaking crazy. So, lucky it wasn't worse. But yeah, I mean, come on, he's legit tough. I mean, it's just silly.
Yeah. And the whole, I wish there was backstage camera for whatever happened with him and Jericho to know the true story.
Well, the funny thing is that supposedly Jericho got him like in a front face lock, but you hear from other guys that Goldberg didn't want to get in trouble. He didn't want any heat, and he literally did nothing. So, like, whatever Jericho is claiming happened didn't really happen, and like nothing really happened. And if Jericho, I guess, was trying to get him in a front face lock, Goldberg wasn't fighting him. He was just like trying not to get any heat, trying not to get any trouble. So I've heard from several guys that it was way blown out of proportion and maybe Jericho, being the good worker that he is kind of pumping that up.
Yeah, he's a great worker. There's another guy sitting at home at full pay
Yeah, what
for
the hell? Like,
months.
and maybe arguably the biggest name on the roster, as far as star
Yeah.
power goes, as far as name recognition goes. Jericho's the man.
Uh, it's bizarre. Do something. I mean, it just pisses the fans off. It makes them look stupid.
And
Like,
Fozzie's not touring. You just, you could read the website. They've been
yeah.
off tour since May 12th or whatever it was.
But he had Wednesdays off. He made sure in his Fozzy thing that he had Wednesdays off, so if they needed him for Dynamite, he could still do it. I've heard that from Meltzer because he's
Oh,
supposedly making like $6 billion a year, which is crazy for someone to sit at home. But as Vince Russo says, this guy's a multi-billionaire. It's his dad's money. Like he doesn't just. It's not like us. He doesn't have to think about money like any of us
sure.
normal people, I guess.
Yep. Before we wrap up, I do want to say Goldberg matches you should see Goldberg before we wrap the bad boy up. Fall Brawl 2000, Goldberg versus Scott Steiner. It's his best match. If anybody tells you different, they're lying or they're wrong. I know it's my opinion, but my opinion is good on this one. Goldberg, Scott Steiner, they beat the living hell out of each other. Stiff as hell. Awesome chemistry together. Fall Brawl 2000, Goldberg versus Scott Steiner. Check out any of the Goldberg Raven matches. They're all good, all fun. Love them all. Goldberg, Saturn, those matches are fun. Goldberg versus Diamond Dallas Page from, I believe it's April 99 Nitro. That's fun. But the real good match that they had, maybe Goldberg's second best match, Halloween Havoc 1998, Goldberg DDP. That's one of his best matches. Love that match. That match is awesome. Goldberg and Sting have had a good match in WCW as well. Like, was that Brendan that was agreeing with you? Yes, Goldberg, Raven for sure. Love them. Love the chemistry. There's a match where Goldberg needs to go through the flock. That's great. It's basically a gauntlet match where he has to kill the flock. Those are all great. Goldberg versus the Giant is awesome just because they're short and sweet and just the crowd is absolutely insane because okay, he's spearing the Giant. Basically, it's like a minute 30-second. They wrestle a few times, and he's just destroying this giant guy who's bigger than ever at this point. And like, can he jackhammer him? Yeah, he jackhammered him with ease. I even like the Reese match because he just is like, there's no way he can get him up, and he gets
Yeah,
him up.
everyone remembers that.
Yeah, so it's like, wow, it's just amazing. So I don't know. There's so many good Goldberg matches that I just like to go back and watch and just, they're just fun. They're short, sweet, fun. I mean, the crowd is amped up and the crowd's going nuts. So, what's not to like? So Steiner, DDP, Raven, the Flock stuff, Saturn matches, those that definitely go back and watch. And even the WWE, if you want to watch some WWE matches, the Jericho match at Bad Blood is good. I like the Rock match just for what it is. It's the dream match there. Nothing kind of great. Survivor Series 2017, Goldberg versus Lesnar is great. I know it's short and sweet, but it's a shocker. I remember watching it live, like, no way, no way, no way. And
That was good booking. That
great
was
booking.
good booking. Everyone was talking about that everywhere.
And there's an awesome match. People forget about this. Go out of your way to see this. And it's not from that long ago. 2021 in Saudi, Goldberg versus Bobby Lashley, Falls Count Anywhere match. That match is great. And maybe one of Goldberg, besides the Steiner match and the DDP match, maybe one of Goldberg's best match. Definitely his best match in WWE. I don't really mind. I like the Reigns match. I do like the Dolph Ziggler match. I talked to Dolph about it, and he was joking around with me about it. He doesn't like Goldberg and blah, blah. I think he's working me a little bit on that. But I like the Ziggler match. I like the Jericho match. I like the Lesnar match. Actually, WrestleMania 33 is great, too. So he's got a couple good Lesnar matches after the WrestleMania 20 stinker. And the Lashley match is definitely by far his best. If you go back in 2021 in Saudi Arabia, Lashley Goldberg is Goldberg's best in WWE.
One thing why I like Scott Steiner, because when you're interviewing him in an interview, it's on this channel too from last year. He's talking about Goldberg. He's like, yeah, Goldberg broke my eye socket in the match, but it's like he doesn't even care.
No,
it's just like this was just a fight. I was sniffing him back. This stuff happens where Bret Hart wah, and it was less to me. It was less than the eye socket. Bret clearly, and I'll put it up one more time. Bret clearly has his hand up there, so I
But the
mean,
follow
Brett's a
through,
great worker.
there was a follow through in that kick though. There, that the pick doesn't tell. So I got to defend Brett there. There was a follow through. But Steiner, yeah, you, you hit him, he's just going to hit you back, like you said with the
Yeah.
Nasty Boys. They used
Or
to like
Ming.
clobber each
Ming
other,
and Haku.
or Ming and Haku. Okay, you're going to hit me, I'm going to hit you right back. The Road Warriors, they literally threw the Road Warriors around like crazy, but watch back, the Road Warriors stiffed them like crazy too. So it's really just awesome stuff, fun stuff. I really liked it.
I
Also,
miss
I
those days of wrestling, the tough guys
yeah.
that would just beat the crap out of each other.
Also, I do have to mention, I mean, it's beyond obvious, but I have to mention, go out of your way. Goldberg versus Hollywood Hulk Hogan in the Georgia Dome. Yes, he beat Scott Hall, great match. Oh, forgot to mention, sold out 99, the ladder match. Scott Hall Goldberg, that's an underrated match. That's an awesome match you need to go out of your way and see. That might be his third best match, Goldberg. I know, I love that match. Great match. I think even Meltzer was saying that he even liked the match with Hall and Goldberg. So definitely go out of your way and see that match. I do like Starcade. Goldberg versus Nash, great chemistry between them. Their match Super Bowl a few months later isn't as good. I believe it's Super Bowl, but that's not as good. But or was it Spring Stampede? I'm trying to remember which was, but still, Goldberg versus Nash and Starcade is still a good match. But Goldberg versus Hulk Hogan, where he wins the title, is great. You could say short, sweet, it's basic, blah blah. The crowd is awesome for it. It's really really fun. You could say
When was the
basic
last
match, but
time you heard a crowd like that? Because I can't.
it,
But you watched the PLEs, but like that was
Brett,
crazy.
I got to be honest because I was at WrestleMania 40, Cody versus Roman Reigns. The crowd was nuts for the
They
finish of that
built up
match
to that better than they
brilliantly.
have for a
Which
long.
which is so funny that people were saying to me like, "Oh, the beginning of the match it was a little slow, wasn't as good." Cody Reigns, because they know they're getting the pop later on, you morons. Like they're building the heat of the match. Like watch that match with a guy that's an actual wrestler, and they'll tell you they're building the match because they know they're getting these huge pops later on. So that's what they're building to. But that match, yeah, if you watch it, and I was there live for it, the crowd is nuts. And I don't even know if you're watching it live on TV because sometimes a stadium that you lose the noise and you lose how loud it is. It was deafening in there.
Very cool. Well, you're the walking encyclopedia of wrestling. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. Fans, let us know in the comments if there's anyone else you want us to talk about in the future. I'm sure we'll be happy
Yeah.
to come back on and talk about. In my opinion, I still like the '80s era from '85 to about '90 is still my top, but definitely
Hogan
that
era.
'97 to 2000 2001 I really liked it. It petered out a lot around 2000 2001, but it was still interesting.
It is crazy, like looking at it, you can literally see like when it falls off. When Austin turns heel, you're like, what the hell? Why? Like you could see it's starting to peter off. And there were some good moments here and there. The invasion was horrible and absolutely embarrassing, but there's some good moments here and there, and some good stuff. Hogan's return is awesome. The NWO, they kind of fumbled that then, so it's like hit and miss after that. But you could literally tell the fall off. '96 when the NWO starts, and it's awesome, and I love that. And then it kind of falls off after that. Even before that, when Sting and Luger were teaming together and Luger's really heel and Sting's a face, that's when WCW to me got pretty damn interesting. And Macho Man versus Flair, that feud, that's kind of when it
I
got really
like
interesting.
WCW from like '91 to '95.
Oh,
Like
me too. I
I
loved it.
it,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, as a kid, that was like perfect for a kid, and
Yeah.
going back, I like to reminisce on it. But as far as like the buzz and being real excited to see what's gonna happen on Nitro this week
Yeah.
and Raw, oh, what am I gonna watch? And then you're fast forwarding back in the days where it was on VCR to see everything that happened. Then you go back and watch the whole thing. But that's what
Yeah.
I used to do.
Yep.
Those are good memories, and now like a lot of the time, like I tried to watch the Cena Punk promos, and literally after 3 minutes, I'm just like, I cannot watch the 12 minutes of this. It's just I don't want to waste this much of my life because I'm getting angry watching this because it's so different than the wrestling I fell in love with. But I won't go on a rant on that. But let us know your thoughts on Goldberg in the comments. John, I'll let you wrap this up. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody out there, for listening. You follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Two Man Power Trip. Everything up to and everything I'm doing will be on there. So you can follow me there and check out Saturday night's main event, Goldberg versus Gunther, the retirement match in Atlanta, Georgia of the man, Goldberg. Who's next? Gunther is next.